how did you learn how to grind? Did you just like, here's a grinder, just do something?
Trial and error.
Yeah. And that was the same way that I learned too. You know, I remember working on my dad's garage. I'm like, I got to do this. He's like, here, take this. And I burned up all of his cutoff wheels in like a day, and he was real mad about that one. But I tell you what, I learned.
Building on more than 100 years of innovation, 3M was the first to manufacture shaped abrasive grain with the geometry acting as a miniature cutting tool. These grains fracture to produce consistently sharp points throughout the abrasive's lifespan, helping provide faster and cooler cutting products with better durability. 3M Cubitron 3 Performance Abrasives. Produce more with less. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis of Fabricator Magazine. My co-host today, Josh Welton of Brown Dog Welding.
Hello.
How's it going, Josh?
Excellent.
We're here at Fab Tech 2024 in Orlando, Florida. We're doing several podcasts from here, and we're going to start off the episodes from Orlando with one focusing on season 2. Well, actually, it's 3M Presents Clash of the Grinders. That's not officially it. It's 3M's Clash of the Grinders. And we'll be talking with Nate Bowman and Kyle Worzala. And we're going to talk a lot about grinding, but actually it's kind of an interesting conversation in the sense that I don't know if people talk about grinding enough.
They don't. They don't talk about grinding enough. And I run into that in my workshop where early on, when I was doing these welding workshops, I was asking people if they're comfortable grinding, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, no problem. And then you see what they're doing, and it's like, no, you're going to cut your hand off. So I do all the grinding now for the workshops for the most part, unless somebody really knows what they're doing. Because they're there to weld. They're not there to grind. But there's a whole nother level of learning when it comes to grinding, finding the proper consumables, the right angles, the right grinders. Just like knowing that you could really destroy the material if you do it wrong, which is going to cost time and money to fix if it is fixable. So it's a very important topic that does not get talked about anywhere near enough.
Every now and then you see a video go viral of a grinding wheel that's chipped off in someone's
Yep,
PE
and
mask.
that's real. Like that happens a lot. I when I was at when I was at Chrysler, one of the other millwrights who was another mentor of mine had one break off, and I did see it actually happen, but it was so quick it just like blew up, and it didn't cut him. But it left the biggest, deepest bruise I've ever seen on his midsection. And it stayed there for a long, long time.
Wow.
Like he was pushed back. Like it was a huge impact.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're going at all those RPMs. And even if, worst case scenario is it comes off and it cuts you, and that could do a lot of damage.
Right.
But even just the force of it exploding, if you're real close to it, it's not fun to be around.
So it's like understanding how to hold the tool and how to angle it, right?
Yep. There's like, to the direction the grinding wheel's going, there's a certain way you should do it. I've known so many people who have one way or another gotten either really lucky or just on the edge of disaster. And even then, some of them got really hurt. It just wasn't anything life-threatening.
Yeah,
But
I don't think we have to worry about any of that occurring in the season 2 of 3M Clash of the Grinders. It's a good form of edutainment.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things about that show is how it's almost like it's a contest, but it's a contest to who can learn the best, the quickest, because it's not one where you come in with all the knowledge. It's one where you might have a basic understanding, but they have the top of the line instructors there to make sure you're following procedure, to make sure you're doing all those things I mentioned earlier, as far as getting the right abrasive for the material, using the right angles for sanding or grinding or whatever it is. And seemed like a really cool thing for those kids and students who were able to go through that. That's got to be a life-changing learning experience.
Yeah, you said you watched a couple of the episodes ahead of time. There was one student that kind of stood out to me. His name was Tom Sawyer.
Yes.
Yeah, did you see him?
Yep.
Kyle, before we started recording, Kyle was telling me that they went out for one of their nightly outings or whatever, and they went to a karaoke bar. Or it wasn't really a bar because a lot of them couldn't drink, but they went to a place that had karaoke.
Yes.
And he asked if he could go up on stage with the mic. They're like, oh, he's going to sing. He just stood up. He went up there and started doing like stand-up. And then he started doing some, like trying to do like one man a cappella.
Yeah, he seemed like he was, that was an interesting character for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Gotta follow up on him a little bit more.
Yeah. He
Well-
alone is worth watching.
Yep. Well, I think we got 2 interesting characters coming up with
Yeah.
both Kyle and Nate. So please stay
Na-
tuned and enjoy the episode.
I've worked with Nate a lot. We're really good friends, and meeting Kyle, he's cut from the same cloth. Like,
Yeah.
just super good dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 good dudes. All the good dudes. All right. I won't start singing. Enjoy the episode.
A new era of abrasives is here. 3M Cubitron 3-fiber disc 1182C 36 Plus with re-engineered 3M precision-shaped grain has up to 60% longer sustained cut rate compared to 3M Cubitron 2-fiber disc 1182C. These discs can outperform and outlast traditional grinding wheels and are designed to help reduce exposure to hand-arm vibration. Try today from a 3M authorized distributor. And now, back to the episode.
Hello. Welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. This episode is sponsored by 3M Clash of the Grinders. It's not only a program, it's a lifestyle. It's kind of exciting because it's the first time we've actually communicated with someone involved with something of this scale. So I think it's gonna be a fun conversation. Today we have Nate Bowman, Weld Scientist, as well as Kyle Worzala, the mad scientist. I don't know. No scientist.
I'm just that guy. I'm just that guy right now.
He's a sleeve deleting scientist.
Well, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about the whole program associated with the Clash of the Grinders? 3M's sponsored 3M sponsored Clash of the Grinders. I'm gonna get that right.
You were involved last year, and I kind of got involved a little late, so start us off.
Yeah, so it all happened probably about last year, FabTech Chicago. I just remember I got a call from some of the people that I work with over at Gateway Technical College. They're like, hey, there's going to be this event, Clash of the Grinders. It's a student-based competition. You got some students you want to send out? I'm just like, sure, let's go. So we brought 3 of our folks down there. A lot of other tech colleges were there too. It was a 2-day event. Luckily, one of my guys took second place, which was awesome. Very proud of him. And from there, they went through the competition where there was, grinding, cut off, wheel use, some welding, finishing methods, and whatnot. And
What
I'm
was the
like,
student's name?
Parker Keno
Nice.
from
Shout out to
Racine,
Parker.
Wisconsin. Shout out Parker. So anyways, what happened is fast forward into April of this year, I get a call from Shane, who's now with Push Corp, and he's like, hey, we need a judge, a third judge for this competition who's a CWI. And we remember that, like, hey, you were there and you were kind of passionate about what you're doing. Do you want to do it? I'm just like, yeah. Like, I didn't even say, oh, I'll get back to you. Like, right away. Yep, let's go.
Very
And
cool.
then it just kind of evolved into, hey, let's start developing what we're going to do for a rubric, for the judging, what are we going to do for the competitions, and then working with not only 3M but then also NC3, or National Coalition for Certification Centers. They got involved too. We started building it all up, and then Elisa from 3M, she just kind of took it over and ran with it, and we're left with this really awesome competition, which was really beneficial for all the students that were involved.
Yeah, you kind of touched upon some of the elements of it. Can you kind of provide a overall look of how it starts out and then how it ends up?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really different about this competition, and probably the biggest reason why I got involved, was because it's every student that's coming to the competition is going to learn something. And I think that's really unique. A lot of places you go, whatever type of competition it is, you go compete, and you submit your part or whatever it is, and you go back and you wait and you find out if you won or not. And if you didn't win, you just pack up your stuff and go home, this is not like that at all. We had 2 of their application engineers, Matt and Tyler there. And these are the guys that are out in the field doing training for, it's 3M. Like, this is the best of the best of the best. And then you have their best people teaching these students how to use the abrasives, best techniques to use the tools. You have their safety people there showing them the proper way to like dress and, what different types of PPE they can wear, and why behind everything. So when I started the
I mean, they
competition,
go right down to the level of if you've got prescription glasses, they're
yes.
hooking you up with prescription safety glasses,
Yeah,
which
and
is awesome.
it's the cool part is it's all about the why behind it. Like there's
Yep.
not a person there that is not stoked to be there, and they're all really excited to share what they know. And that was again, that was the most exciting part for me about the competition is everybody there is learning something every day, like myself included. Just, oh, I didn't realize that they even offered this safety thing that they had, or oh, that's why Z87 Plus is that way. That's what that rating stands for. That's what this means. So as the competition progresses, there's more skills required because we kind of start like leveling up the challenges. So what you learned from the day before and what you learned from watching your peers and stuff, you can kind of build on that so you get to the final challenge at the end.
How many participants are we talking about?
I think there's 12.
12 of
There's
them,
12
I think,
total.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And these things are recorded,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
I just watched a couple episodes on YouTube this morning.
There you go.
Yeah, we started filming, like, we were there at, like, 6:30, somewhere around
Oh, yeah,
there,
we got there
coffee in
early.
hand,
Oh, yeah.
and, filming by 7, and then, film and weld and grind and all day.
Right.
And, we had a pretty dialed-in schedule, and then after every night, we took the students out, like, either to, like, a baseball game or out to
sweet.
dinner, like, every
Oh,
night.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
Where was this based at?
it's at, in Minneapolis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it
Yep.
was Minneapolis Community College, I believe, is where
Okay,
it was at.
okay.
So real accommodating, real nice setup they had there
Awesome.
too.
Yeah.
Wow. And if people are interested, they can go out and find season 1 out on YouTube, I'd imagine.
Yeah, season 1, and then this is season 2, Clash of the Grinders.
Smashing the crap out of those welds.
Yes, we did smash some welds. There was I was like, hey, we need a hammer, like a sledgehammer. And everybody kept bringing me things that were not a sledgehammer. And I'm like, no, I need like 3 foot,
Oh, yeah.
Looks like we need
a 5-pound sledgehammer.
What would you call it? Clash of the Hammers next.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh yeah,
That's right.
kind of hard to travel with something like that though.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a plethora of people in fabricating, but how do you decide who makes a good candidate to be on Clash of the Grinders?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think honestly that really came down to their application process that they had, because in order for them to apply to even get selected, I believe that they had to make a short video of themselves,
Oh, okay.
submit it, and then I think they also had like a formal application as well. And how they were selected, I mean, that's not up to me. I think that was more of 3M that was doing that selection process. But I can tell you honestly, the people that were selected, those 12 contestants, were the best people to be selected.
Oh, very articulate and
Yes.
competent to a certain level.
Oh, and they were also friendly too. Like
Yeah.
everybody there was like super cool. Because
Yeah.
the first day everyone's kind of a little bit more quiet. The second day, he's up. The third day, all the personalities are
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And it was funny because I remember the last day we were there. We were all outside of I don't know, some like sports bar or something, and we're looking at the sidewalk, and there go 12 of the contestants on those bird scooters, just
Oh, that's
flying,
right.
just
That's-
flying down
all
Hennepin
of them
Avenue. I
together.
was like, it was
They were-
so funny. It was, and just seeing the bonds that they created, and what was really cool for me was I didn't have a lot of time to bond with a lot of these individuals. I was judging, and I kind of liked it that way too, because I didn't want to
You
get
don't play favorites.
yeah, I didn't get to know too much about them, but once I started watching the episodes and they're kind of digging into the backstory, I'm like, I had no idea that these were the individuals that were competing. So
Yeah.
with all the different trials and tribulations they have been through, their walks of life, where they're from, it really shines a light on the fact that there's so many different individuals getting into this trade. I mean, it's out there for anybody, It's not for everybody, but it's for anybody who wants it, what I'm
Yeah.
So are
saying?
these all the contestants are basically like community college age level,
Oh,
experience
yeah.
Yeah,
level?
correct.
Yeah, I know when we were out to dinner the first night, they had like, hey, here's the bar and everything like that. I think only one contestant was actually able to get a beer because everybody was under the age of 21.
That's right.
So
Yeah, everybody was under 20.
yeah. But yeah, everybody there is super cool. Big shout out to them too for being total team players and being humble in their winning, and then also just being gracious in defeat as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So good on them.
You find people in this industry tend to be kind of chill. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Easy to
yeah.
get along with.
Yeah.
It sounds like maybe the younger generation is kind of bringing that same attitude.
Yeah.
the
Well,
field.
they're all cut from the same cloth. I mean, when
Yeah.
you get into a trade like welding or metal fabrication or anything where you're getting your hands dirty, those individuals are cut from the same cloth. They know where they want to go. They have that mindset, and they kind of vibe well around others. And I'm not saying that they're not going to, communicate well with other people who are getting into
Right.
like different industries, but when you have a group of those individuals together, they just they feed off each other's energy and they just talk in a different manner.
Yeah. You had a good point with grinding, Josh, in terms of, my initial take is that, people want to do grinding right because they don't want to do more grinding. But I mean,
Well,
it's kind of
with the
ever
weld.
present, right?
Yeah, everyone says, it's the stupid meme that I get sent 120 times every Christmas about your dad, or what was it? The Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I've been told you're not much of a welder, so you need a grinder for Christmas.
Yeah.
Dude, you're always going to be grinding, whether it's the prep or it's, the weld call out says has to be ground flush or certain contour, or you're going to always have a mistake. Like nobody's perfect. At some point, like even I make a mistake once a month or something like that. So that was sarcasm.
Yeah.
So you've got to be
I think
able
we have
to.
an alert for that.
I've seen way too many
Buzzer
people
working?
just try to weld over garbage. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, man, you make a little mistake, you got to get it out of there. And I use a grinder more than any other tool, I think.
Yeah.
That I have to have at least a couple with me.
I think something that a lot of folks miss is that grinding is a skill.
100%.
So being able to know and understand like what abrasive to grab, how to use the tool, and how to get the most out of an abrasive or a tool, like, and that the
And the
tool and the abrasive
sequencing
together.
and the processing.
Yeah,
and-
like, I mean, and I'm not just saying like stepping welds out, like, to get to a certain finish, but just knowing what wheel to use to remove a weld or
Yep.
to get a profile or a contour the way that you want it, like in the shortest amount of time possible.
And knowing all that stuff is available now, which it
Yeah.
wasn't 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like
Yeah.
not widely known that stuff was available.
And the
Yeah.
the thing that I think a lot of folks don't really realize about abrasives is, companies are competitive. I mean, and you don't really think, I don't think anyone really even thinks of this. So like there is a best product out there. There is a best product
Trying
out
to
there.
one up each other all the time, which
Yeah.
is great for the consumer.
Exactly. So, there's lots of different abrasive manufacturers out there and stuff that are, they're all competing for your business as a welder. So, I think that, like use the best stuff that's out, like grind less.
Yeah. Kyle, is that incorporated into welding education nowadays?
Well, it's getting more incorporated over
segue.
time. And it's really telling when you're able to watch like the Clash of the Grinders, and you're watching the episodes and you're seeing how these contestants are competing and some of the testimonials they've given. They're like, yeah, I didn't know much about this or that. And I'm like, hey, these are welding students. Why aren't they knowing about this yet? Maybe they're not that far along in their curriculum yet.
So many of
or-
those schools are strapped for money. So
Right.
the last thing I want to do is spend on new consumables.
Exactly, because when you put consumables in the hand of an individual who's not properly trained, it's going to get burned up right away.
100%.
Like no matter what, it's gone. So there's some things that are in a pipeline right now with 3M and National Coalition of Certification Centers, and there's actually going to be some curriculum that's being developed
Wow.
for grinding. And a few weeks ago, I was at an advisory board meeting over at the college I work at, and I announced that, hey, this is going to be something coming down the pipeline. At the advisory board meeting, there were students, there were faculty members, and there were business leaders and industry leaders. And the moment I said grinding certifications, I looked at the students and they're like, what? I looked at the industry leaders and they're like, we need this.
Right on.
And they're like, yeah, I think you're onto something, because like, how did you learn how to grind? Did you just like, here's a grinder, just do something?
It's
right?
trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the same way that I learned too. I remember working on my dad's garage. I'm like, I got to do this. He's like, here, take this. And I burned up all of his cutoff wheels in like a day. And he was real mad about that one. But I tell you what, I learned. And then it was one of them things where I was never formally properly trained. I really don't know of any other formal training out there right now. So we're working on creating a standard.
Yeah.
And 3M is really leading the way on that, so that, hey, this is going to be how you not only work safely, but how to actually operate a right angle grinder properly.
See, that can be dangerous as hell.
Oh, it's one of the most dangerous
Yeah.
tools out there, man. The amount of times I've been in fab shops, just working, seeing a cutoff wheel blow up
Yep.
or seeing a wire wheel on a grinder kick back and it, because there's no guard
Whoa.
on it and all of a sudden it's wrapped up. I
Whoa.
got a few battle scars myself that I'm not very proud
100%.
about, but
Wow.
chicks dig it,
That's
you know.
gotta put
So
the
Chicks definitely dig
fear of
scars.
God
yeah,
in you.
so the thing is we're trying to bring more education out there for these individuals, for schools to get their hands on so that they're able to then train their students better, which then feeds into the workforce. So then they don't have to worry about giving a grinder with a cutoff wheel
I love
to an
it.
individual, or they don't have to worry about, hey, you guys just finished up this part. We wanted a nice smooth grind on it. Now the whole thing looks like the Grand Canyon because you don't know what you're doing. So there's a lot of good things coming around. Development is in process right now. Hopefully have something rolled out by next year. So stay tuned on that.
Cool. Yeah, I struggle with that doing welding workshops, and the people have a limited amount of time to come in and weld. And at first I let them grind their own stuff, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take care of the grinding. You guys keep welding because I don't have
Right.
time to teach them how not to kill themselves with the grinding.
Right.
And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I know how to use that." And then you see them and they got the thing,
Oh,
backwards, and the
I
grinders
gotcha.
kicking back on
It's
them.
at like 80 degrees.
Yeah.
You're like, nee, 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 nee.
Well,
You're
even
like,
cutting,
Yeah.
the-
So one of the
almost
things,
dying.
one of the things I have my students do, like they learn grinding right away because after they're done welding for the day, they grind their table smooth. I don't want to see
Excellent.
all these
Yeah.
tack welds on there. So they get into it pretty quickly. And usually after, the second or third week, you look at the table, it's all gouged up. I'm like, hey, we have to do this a little bit better. Maybe let's select something different instead of using that depressed center wheel, or heaven forbid, I've seen people try to use a cutoff wheel for it because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
Right.
And
exactly.
it's really hard.
And
just-
that's not on them.
yeah, and it's on us as educators.
Exactly.
And it's difficult just to dedicate a certain amount of time to go over grinding. So being able to sprinkle it into other
Yes.
lessons and explain the importance of it, maybe integrate it with other assignments for students, that's going to be where it's really going to hit home for a lot of them, because it's utilizing the product, seeing your finish when you're done with it, and actually knowing how to do it the right way.
We deal with that in my I work in a prototype shop. It's a Department of Defense shop, and they just assume everyone coming in can grind.
Right.
And we've had to do some repairs on this new vehicle that's coming. Everything's aluminum, and when it happens even on the steel armor, but when you're like removing a boss or a appurtenance or something,
Yeah.
and they don't realize it, but they're always digging in right before they get to the part,
Mhm.
and it just ends. So I'm like, just let me do it. Just like, I know you guys want to save time, but just let me do that part so I
Oh,
can
yeah.
prep my own thing that I'm gonna weld.
Yeah,
and
you
it's
start
not-
getting base material damage on
Oh,
things,
exactly.
and then you have to go back and fill that in, and you might have to go and smooth that out, and then before you know it, you got this big mess on your hands. You're
Especially
like,
when you're doing armor or something like that, which you
Yeah.
don't want to put more heat in than you have to.
right,
and
right.
Just, yeah. I'm with you guys. I love it.
Right on.
In doing this, you'd mentioned some of the educational points. What are some of the main things that come to your head? Like you go back and everybody participating in Clash of Grinders, like, oh wow, yeah, we didn't recognize that. Is there anything like universal lessons that popped out?
I think some of the biggest things is like that I see is like tool angle. I think that's the biggest, probably the biggest thing that I see in the industry is just folks running at the angle grinders like at too steep of an angle
Yeah.
and not having the abrasive sitting a lot more flat. There's on any abrasive, there's always going to be an angle like rating.
Right.
Like there should be at least like, and a lot of times they'll have it like even on top of the abrasive or on the box or something like that. Like kind of go back to like reading the instructions.
Right.
There is a like best practice to that. The other thing I would say, we see people with, too much pressure.
Yeah.
Like if you're burning up grinders, like
Mhm.
I've never burned up a grinder,
Right.
not ever. And it's like you let the tool do the work. Like if you got to lay on it, like you're already in the wrong. Like there's just no
Yeah.
need for that. If you have to lay on it, get yourself a bigger grinder, like or a
Right.
bigger wheel or whatever. Or they're like, well, I only have a 4.5-inch grinder. It's like, well, you can only do what your grinder can put out.
Or they're running like a 300-foot extension cord.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah. Those two are probably the biggest ones. Just, it's a technique thing that will destroy even the best abrasive. So those two things, proper angle and then proper pressure. And then I don't know what would be the other one. Maybe like any other ones that you saw.
Yeah, so one of the things I actually took home knowledge based on it because I wanted to learn just as much as these contestants were. It was abrasive selection because there was a lot of things that they were doing and I was doing wrong the whole way through. Like, I was trying to use like this disc to remove mill scale and it's not doing anything 'cause it's not meant for that. Or I'm burning through these fiber discs because I'm not using it properly. And then I'm thinking, oh, I know what I'm doing, but do I really know? So then just to find the hierarchy of things to get that nice polished finish. And you guys will end up seeing that in that next episode of Clashing the Grinders, where they actually have to do a lot of uh post weld cleaning and
Nice.
and finishing and just even getting down to the Scotch Brite selections,
Oh yeah.
going from a very coarse to a fine and actually watching that process change up. So my big thing was, and I think the contestants too, they seen it. Proper selection of abrasive is going to save them time. It's going to give them a lot better quality, and they're just going to have a more enjoyable experience as well.
That actually reminds me of something. Speaking of mill scale removal, one of the things that like blew my mind. I mean, mill scale is like the bane of every welder's
We were
existence.
talking about this Sunday,
So
actually.
yeah, Scotch Brite Clean and Strip XT Pro.
Yes.
It has silicon carbide in it, and it erases mill scale.
Interesting.
Like, and it doesn't load up. It's when I first saw it, I mean, it literally took 2 seconds. I was like, I have never in my career seen something that takes mill scale off like this.
Nice.
And it goes through paint and rust and just down to clean base metal. I just used it the other day to like weld some teeth on my loader bucket. So, like heavy paint, rust, and I mean dirt stuff that's like right on the edge blows right through it like it's
Mhm.
not even there.
Is that like one of those spongy looking
Yeah,
bags?
yeah. So it's got like a little bit of sponge
Yep.
to it. So, it's not gonna gouge into the base metal, which is like a huge problem. You
Right.
want to prep your material.
100%.
So sometimes you'll grab a hard wheel and then you're like grinding into it, and then you get all those weird like grind marks
Yeah.
all around where you just welded. Not with that. It
Right.
just gives you this nice, like pretty shiny, fluffy finish with like little blended edges, and you just weld it in, and it's
Yeah.
like
So are you
money.
familiar with work environments where the trend we've seen a lot is trying to, especially new welders, kind of limit their ability to fidget with the power sources so they can get consistency in their delivery of welds. Do they apply that same type of control with finishing? Will
I
it,
think
like the
that
tool
there
room
is.
say, or somebody say, like, you need to be using this? Is there guidance being given at these shops?
No, I mean,
Or do you have to learn on your own? To me, it
Yeah,
sounds like the
it's
Wild West a little
it
bit.
it kind of is. It's like, whatever you're comfortable with, if you're not like, I think of something like a flap wheel, like
Yeah.
so many people are just super comfortable with a flap wheel where a fiber disc may be way better. Like a 36 grit fiber disc with a backer is like, it cuts so much faster than a hard wheel or a flap wheel. So that in the hands of somebody that doesn't, can't use a tool correctly, you'll just tear through a part. Like you could gouge into stuff or what. The same thing with like a hard wheel.
Yeah.
So there is a dedicated process and a best way to do it. And I think 3M does a really good job at like kind of outlining like what the best tool for the job is, abrasives wise.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
I know that there's a lot of parts that need to be prepped for paint, right? So there is, I would assume that a lot of these shops that are painting things, there's like a manufacturer operating procedure, MOP or whatever you want to call it. And before it goes into paint, depending on what it is, they might have to go over it with like a profilometer to make sure that, it's ready for paint. And it meets a certain RA where that paint is actually going to adhere. Because imagine if you have a setup and your finish is so bad, you've put all the paint on there and it's peeling off or flaking off because your finish isn't proper for what that paint is calling for.
I think
So,
that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like
Yeah.
the reality is the motivator to figure things out because they have they have rework to do.
yeah, because I mean, I couldn't imagine, sending everything down a powder coat line and just for it to get rejected by the customer because all the paint is flaking off because the finish was bad or
Right.
whatever it is. I mean, there's many different alternative ways to do things by, putting your finish on there. But I think a proper selection of like going from Scotch Brite to like an extra coarse to like a finer you know, whether you want that nice clean shine on there or you want to have just a little bit of that roughness to it for paint adhesion.
Right.
So that's a little too far outside of my wheelhouse
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
kind of down the stream, right?
Yeah, but I mean, no matter where you look, it could be in welding or it could be just in fabrication or like think about like auto body stuff. It's all there.
Yeah. Have you ever done any finishing of that type, Josh?
Oh
Like,
yeah, all the time.
yeah.
Yeah, every day. Well, not every day, but every project for sure. We end up a lot of what we do ends up getting sandblasted before paint.
Oh
but,
wow, okay, yeah.
This last I just built this giant fuel cell that's all over the place, and it's not big enough, or it's too big for the sandblaster that we have. We could set it out in like a full vehicle sandblaster, but not really worth it. So I just made sure the painters like it when it's about like 100 grit on sanding. So I'll just take a DA sander with a 100 or 80 grit and sand it down like that. But yeah, all my pieces, whether they get painted or not, that's part of my inspection process is the cleaning of the welds, the cleaning of the part, before and after. It helps me before know, make sure the part's all right. And then I hate it when people tack something up and then they clean it
Oh
because
yeah.
the welds are still reaching in places you can't clean when it's
Mhm.
already tacked together.
That's
So-
such a huge that like is such a huge point. Like I think so many people miss that, and especially with like plasma or laser cut parts.
Yep.
That dross that's on that cut edge that you just tacked into that fillet weld. Like if you're getting fusion beyond the root, you're gonna just be pulling that stuff in.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like you could be getting porosity or pinholes, and you're like, but I prepped it, and it's like not the part
Did
that
you
like
though?
yeah, not the part. It's
Yeah.
molten all the way underneath that thing. You know, you're getting
Yeah.
adequate fusion.
Yeah, it's like you're literally throwing sand at a part and all that shit gets into the inside where you can't clean it then.
Yeah.
So it's better just so that's part of my process is I'll either use like a Scotch-Brite pad or a wire wheel, get the surfaces clean, then put everything together, and then at the end, that's part of my inspection process too, is going through cleaning all the welds by hand. And I'm in a prototype shop, so it's not like I should be in, I'm not under the crunch like a production welder.
Right.
But I see so many people skip so many of those steps, and they're like, "How come your welds look like that and mine never come out like that?" And it's like I do the little things, like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they're not little things; they should be really important things. But
Yeah.
That prep
people-
is part of that process.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
It kind of goes back to what you're saying. If you're going to end up grinding anyway, you might as well do it to the best of your
Yeah.
ability.
And even with the art, like the tattooed metal kind of style of
Mhm.
art, like I usually start with the brush surface, but you can tell the difference between what I'm doing and someone who's starting with a mirrored finish. Because just in general, the welds themselves are going to look better the smoother the surface is. So that's part of it too. A lot of times that doesn't matter, but if you're trying to go for that, nth degree, having that really smooth, really, nice finish is the best.
Yeah.
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 You want like part A and part B that you're trying to weld together and weld metal and nothing else.
Yep.
No scale, no paint, no oil, no
Right.
sandblasting media. Like
Exactly.
that's it. That's best case scenario. So it's like if you can take a minute before you weld,
Yeah.
1 minute before you weld and prep that thing up, that weld is in there indefinitely. So
Yeah.
make it count.
Yeah. Then you're not spending 1 hour removing said weld just to do that.
Yeah, do it
that
again.
weld again.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got these younger people participating. Do you see the kind of the moments where they're like, "Oh wow, yeah," like I mean, it's almost like
yeah.
a class. It sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of like that, like the aha moments. I mean,
Yeah.
It's almost like competitive learning.
Yeah.
it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
I
I
can
mean,
learn faster than you. Like,
I actually hit on that in one of the beginning, like episodes of the competition. I said that, like this is really anyone's competition. The person that learns the most
Right on,
is
yeah.
going to win.
Yeah.
Like, because you have the best trainers, like, period. Here.
Right.
These people train, like 3M sends those folks out, those application engineers out to go train the best people that are welding like nuclear submarines and spaceships and literally like
Yeah.
that level of stuff. So ask them any question that you want. Like they're going to give you every, tool that you need to be successful.
Right.
And you just don't doesn't matter what college. I mean, like we were learning stuff from these
Oh, yeah.
folks. Like, and I've been in the industry 20 years. You've been in the industry. You got to be that long
Yeah,
too,
just
you know?
about that same
And
length
it's
right
like,
there.
we were like, that like, man, that's a great point. Like, so there was a lot of that happening.
Oh,
You see
yeah.
it throughout the whole competition.
Yeah, and even like the two other judges that I worked with, Mark and Mackenzie, they were judging because they knew what they were looking for because they've been around it for so long, and even the insight that they were able to give the contestants too, on top of the coaches helping out. I mean, you had the best people judging it, you had the best coaches there helping out. It was such a great production, and I learned hopefully just as much as what the contestants did, but again, kind of seeing them get told like, hey, don't do it this way. Like there is a contestant, the coach was like, hey, I need you just to grind right here and do this and that. And he listened to that advice and he just went, put it right there. And it was perfect. So they were not just learning, but they were actually actively listening too.
Yeah,
right
So
on.
that was pretty cool.
So just from a standpoint of like personal protective equipment, because when you mentioned, the angle grinder kicking back on you, I had this mental image of just like you in a Halloween costume with a, blood trail and an angle grinder.
Oh, it was
hanging
about,
from
it was
your-
about right here. It was about right here.
I mean, do you bring these people to Clash of the Grinders? Do they have a good feel for what they should be doing, or do they have to be kind of corrected in terms of best practices to keep everyone safe?
I think the cutoff wheel is always scary for anybody that's been in the industry a long time. Cause like if you've been in the industry for a while, like
Yeah.
you've blown up a few cutoff wheels, probably.
You've probably
That's
known
gotta-
someone
and
who
you've known
got
somebody that
attacked by
has.
one.
That's
So-
gotta just, man, the first time that happens,
Oh,
that has
yeah.
to
Oh,
just,
yeah.
man.
That's why you wear every time I run a cutoff wheel, I wear like a welding coat,
Yeah.
long cuff gloves, safety glasses, and I wear my welding hood on
That's
grind
because you're
mode.
smart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how I've blown them up. I've blown them up a lot.
Right, right.
Just usually if you're using a cutoff wheel, it's not like I just need to do this perfect little thing. It's
Yeah.
usually we're like, man, I got the cutoff wheel out, cut this thing apart because
Yeah.
it's stuck, and then you got to like wedge that wheel in there, and it's like that's how it gets you.
Oh yeah, like when I learned it's usually always the hard way if you know where I'm coming from, and you learn real quick from that mistake. But you don't want people to have to make their own mistakes to learn from it when you're going to get injured. So we're able to share those experiences, and before that even happens, during Clash of the Grinders, before they even went out to do their grinding or welding, they had a safety brief that they had to go through where
Have to.
they were going through
Oh,
all
wow.
the PPE that was going to be used. Mike Halleck from 3M, he does a lot of the safety stuff. He actually gave a nice presentation every morning before every event
Yeah.
saying, hey, you guys got to wear this for this reason, so they're also walking out not only with knowledge on how to grind, but how to actually do it safely too, because that's a big thing that's overlooked. I mean,
We hear
Yeah.
that. I mean, that
Oh,
it
yeah.
sounds like overkill, but
it definitely ain't
the
overkill.
companies we honor, like with our safety awards, they do stuff like that.
Oh,
and they
yeah.
have low incidence of injury. And
When I was at Chrysler, when I hired in to become a millwright apprentice, we had 5 weeks off site in a UAW Chrysler training center, which was incredible. And it was basically safety and how to use tools safely.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much
Yeah,
it.
and there actually is quite a bit that goes into just using the tool safely. Like
Right.
people would think, oh, it's a grinder, I'm gonna pick it up and turn it on, away I go.
Yeah.
But did you look over things first? Because I tell all my students, like, don't trust the last person that used
100%.
it.
Right.
I'll have them like for corded grinders, go over the cord on there, make sure that nobody didn't lay it on a hot piece of steel or
Especially in that environment.
yeah, like all the guarding.
Isn't that
because-
funny? I've never heard that. That's
yeah, well, it's you got to start to think outside the box and think about the environment that you're in. Like, go over that cord, make sure it's not all frayed up or anything like that. Check the guard, make sure it's actually on properly, and just a lot of little things. And yeah, my nice little scar I got right here was because there was no guard on it. But
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And then in time again, when you learn the hard way, you're like, hey, maybe I should have a guard on there. So it's just the teachable moments that we can share and pass down the line.
We had speaking of PPE, Up and Smoke provided us with some
Yeah,
custom
they're awesome.
welding jackets. So they're Novus welding jackets. They had like full FR jacket with Carbon X sleeves. So
Oh, wow.
all the students had those on in
Yeah.
addition to
Oh, yeah.
like the top of the line like 3M PPE that they make. I think the biggest thing about like wearing protective equipment is like it's gotta like it's for you, it's personal, it should fit you, you should be comfortable in it. Like you shouldn't just be like you shouldn't be like a mascot in it,
Right.
like no dexterity or whatever.
Right,
So
That
you know,
actually pretty cool though to see a mascot weld.
I mean, just go put on a big, huge pair of
you're
like
onto
those
something.
like long cuff gloves, and
Do like Grimace versus MSU Sparty or something.
That'd be great. I mean, every piece of PPE has its purpose, but you have to just apply it to what you're actually doing, because we
Yep.
don't want to bubble wrap everybody. But if you're
You
gonna,
can't.
yeah, if
And
you're
shit's gonna happen. Like mistakes happen.
yeah, for sure. Like if you're like carbon arc gouging in a confined space, you want to be head to toe in leathers. But if you're doing some grinding and whatnot, you're not gonna, yeah, you're gonna be wearing a PPE, but you're not gonna go to that fullest extent where like
You're wearing a suit of armor.
basically,
Right.
yeah. So, no, 3M definitely takes their safety very seriously.
Right on.
We took the competition very seriously on that aspect. 'Cause we don't want anybody getting hurt.
And a shout out to any fab shop that actually buys their folks PPE and stuff.
Yeah,
for
and
real.
if you're
and
not
especially
yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, to me, that goes a long way.
Yeah, keep your people safe. If you're not buying them stuff, you should
Yeah.
make a little investment.
Well, it beats save money on the monthly pizza party. And,
Yeah,
Especially for younger hires, because they don't have the money to buy their own stuff. So
Yeah.
they're gonna buy whatever the cheapest thing is
Yeah.
that they can get their hands on.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, supplying PPE I think is a big deal.
yeah. So anything else people should be looking out for on Clash of the Grinders season 2?
You don't want to announce the winner right here or anything.
No.
You gotta
it
watch.
is this
Yeah,
person.
it's like the old Hollywood
You
thing.
gotta
They've been
watch.
sworn to
They're
secrecy.
gonna, breaking news
Either that
here
or
on the
lawyers will show
Fabricator
up on the
Podcast.
doorstep.
We could talk about so the other thing too, I will say this, that is coming out after Clash of the Grinders. So I nerded out with the scientist Mark Lakowski, who
It's weird for you.
I know, right? Like
Nerding
imagine
out.
that, right? Like, well, I'm hanging out with like all these like really smart, like these are engineers and scientists, and I'm like, this is a real actual scientist, not a Instagram scientist. So
If you're gonna find some scientists, 3M
They're-
is probably the place they're gonna
they're
be.
at 3M, like so I end up hanging out with these guys, and I get talking to this guy Mark Lakowski about like he's the guy that invented the Cubitron 3, like the grain itself, and these are like little ceramic triangles that they put inside the thing. So I was like, we should do a video on like the science behind grinding. So we have 2 videos that are going to come out after Clash of the Grinders,
wow.
and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into like how it's made, like as much as we can tell you, and then talk about that the fiber disc, or not the fiber disc, but the Clean and Strip XT Pro, that one that removes mill scale.
Okay.
So that'll be coming out after Clash of the Grinders.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you're able to get down to how they make that stuff. Because I mean, you're
Yes.
talking microscopic type.
I
of
was
efforts.
I got to that point where I like talked to him for a day, and then I went home and like read up on a bunch of like these how they make it. So the next day I come back and I'm like, do you make it like this? And it was kind of like the McMahon interview where he's like, can't talk about it anymore. Like you're getting too close. And I mean,
Too
I was
close
like
to the secret
cracking the
sauce.
code.
yeah, but I think it's fascinating. Like there's just so much that goes into it. There's a lot of thought.
Yeah.
Like nothing is on accident. So,
Well, so I mean, you're somebody that respects how things were done in the
Yeah.
past, and to the point where you have old welding power sources,
Yeah.
things of that nature. I mean, it's got to be kind of because the pace of change with like consumables,
yeah,
it's pretty rapid compared
It
to like
is.
maybe
It is, and
hardware.
I really think that that's something a lot of folks miss. Like, I
Well,
mean,
yeah, right,
everybody
right.
here, every booth at this show is competing
Yeah.
for your business.
Yep.
And like, there's money at stake.
Yeah.
And, just like competitive racing or whatever it is, like that just makes for better innovation,
Right.
and the person that wins is the welder,
Yeah.
like having all the suppliers compete
More
for
tools in the tool bag.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
The person that wins is the welder.
Yeah, you want to go deep through your personal background.
We're going
Yeah.
deep, real deep, the murky waters.
Why are you the person you are today?
Yeah.
Let's get all existential. on
Oh
this.
boy. Oh boy.
This should be good.
So no,
Who are you?
actually, I was very, very fortunate growing up in a very blue collar family. My dad was a boilermaker, and I'll tell you,
Nice.
he did about 23 years of hard labor. Right. So, I learned about welding and working with your hands at a very young age. Just putzing around in his garage with his old BuzzBox welder, and I'll never forget the first time he showed me how to stick weld. It's like the first thing I ever learned. Right. Sets it up. He's like, "You want to try it?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, it looks real neat." So he strikes an arc, and I'm watching him. He's like, "Okay, no, you do it." So I grab it, and just like any buddy stick welding for the first time. You stick the rod on there, and it's a buzz box machine, right? So it's just going, and I'm like freaking out.
I'm doing this.
I'm trying to rip it off. He's like, rip it off like you mean it. I was like, I'm trying, and the whole rod's glowing red, and it freaked me out. But I had never been more intrigued at that moment.
It's a lot of
seeing
power.
that. Yeah, and it scared the living hell out of me. But I tell you what, I was like, this is pretty cool. So I kind of grew up doing it, and I'd go home from school and he'd be at work and I'd burn up all this stellite rod and he'd be like, oh, wow, thanks a lot, man. But he couldn't be too mad because I was doing something with my hands, and I had a passion for it. So I kept going, doing all that stuff through like middle school, high school, started to realize, hey, I could actually get a job doing this. And, yeah, from there I just jumped into the workforce right when I graduated in high school. It was '09 during a recession. So if trying to find a job really sucked, it's either you can make $10 an hour doing this with no experience, or you can make $20 an hour with experience, and you can just assume what job I got. But you roll with the punches, you keep learning, you keep on moving up, find different avenues, different ways to go. And then when I was working for the steel workers, plant shut down, tech got laid off. In the meantime, I was still working in it, kind of like education. I was like volunteering at the high school I went to and all this other stuff. And
Nice.
yeah, it just turned into, hey, this college is looking for a substitute. I apply, I'm a sub. Hey, you want to be adjunct? I'll do that. The one guy that I was working with, he's like, hey, I'm going to retire. You're going to take my spot. Shout out Mark Utek.
Nice.
And he's like, yeah, you're going to jump in there. I'm like, all right, cool. And then I've been there for about 7 years now. And
Excellent.
I love it. I don't never want to go back. Like,
Yeah.
I take a lot of pride and passion in like watching people grow and learn and being able to witness that growth too, because
Right.
I love the trade. I love, working with my hands, building cool stuff. I see where it got me in life, and I had those opportunities growing up. There's a lot of kids that don't have that opportunity, whether they come from a broken home or a family that's not blue collar, or they don't even know what it's about. I want to give them more opportunity than I had growing up. So I'm trying to lay it all out like, hey, you guys here, let's go over this, that, let's do this, just all the other little things, because I want the best for them, because I got it made because I grew up doing it. I want them to have it even better. I want them to be better than I am. I want them to be better welders than I am, and they're like, how am I going to do that? I'm never going to do that. And now with that kind of attitude, it might take a little while, but I tell you what, you got to strive for it to get there.
Yep.
So that's really all it's about. I just found a passion for it. I just want to keep rolling with it. And
Very
yeah.
cool. I like it.
yeah.
Man, I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
wait to
Different
meet the
paths
next
available.
Kyle Worzala.
Oh, maybe next year.
All right. Speaking of
Next
your
year.
past, what was your favorite birthday growing up?
My favorite what?
Birthday.
Birthday?
Like, what was the best gift you ever got?
Oh, the best gift I ever got.
We're
Dude.
digging deep.
Huh? Oh.
We're digging deep.
Okay. Probably, I don't know. I was really young. I got that OG Power Rangers Megazord, yo. I got the Megazord.
Do you still have it?
No, I wish I did. I would have
Oh.
sold it on eBay by now. And them things are
100%.
big
But-
money. Or I would have given it to my boy by now. Like, here's some Power Ranger
We'll
stuff. He's
pass
on a,
on the tradition.
yeah, he's on a Power Rangers kick right now.
Unite him
so-
and
Oh yeah, no, it's just very humble beginnings. I made a hell of a lot of mistakes growing up too, but I learned from them. I'm able to share those experiences with
Yeah.
my students, and then say, hey, if you're gonna screw up, do it young if you're going to, but learn from it at least. So, life ain't always fair. It ain't always easy, but it ain't gonna be where you start. It's gonna be where you're gonna end up.
100%.
Wow,
Dig it.
spoken like an educator. Congratulations.
I try.
Yeah.
I try. Fake it till you make it, right? That's how I got here so
That's
far.
well done. Do you have any new welding machines that you purchased?
New welding machines. I have a couple prototype machines that I'm testing right now for Lincoln.
No kidding.
Uh,
Like the opposite end of things, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
I have a couple machines
The
that
black
are
box.
that are coming out. That I've kind of been working on a little bit. Those are in the works, but I'm in the process of building my new weld lab at the house.
No kidding.
So I'm like, not a welding machine, but I bought a big fixture table finally.
Oh,
It's like
wow.
been like life goals to have, like, I think every welder and fabricator dreams of
Right.
having like a giant fab table.
Yeah.
And yeah, I made a deal with Sigmund yesterday.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm the proud owner of a giant
It's
table.
like one of those modular looking things.
Yeah, the
That's
one that looks
cool.
like a giant erector set.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Dope.
Yeah.
That's about it, really. It's just the house stuff, and I'll have a sweet lab with a crazy table and
Yeah, maybe now you know
old
what
welders,
now
new
we know what to
welders.
get Nate for his birthday.
That's right.
Stuff for the weld lab.
Yep.
Yeah. So what do you need? You said that with your AeroWave, you just need the guts from another machine, or do you think?
No, I
it's,
think it's good. My AeroWave, I think, is good. The customer that replaced that machine said they were having some trouble, like that would like shut off with it on the when they're welding on AC.
okay.
But we're pretty sure that their torch was just completely roached and it was building up too much resistance and
Yeah.
it was tripping it.
Yep.
Which is something that happens pretty commonly with those. So it may actually be just fine.
Nice.
So, but apparently the DC side works just fine. So I'm yet to power it up and like do that, but we're probably like 6 months, a year out. We need to do like a AeroWave discovery session.
Yeah, 100%. We talked to the guy, was it last year or 2 years ago, who was the lead engineer on that.
Yeah, that was so rad.
And another cool tidbit about that is that was the first machine Miller ever hired a industrial designer to build. To design.
You can tell.
Yeah, oh
'cause
yeah,
it's
100%.
gorgeous.
That's the one where it's transformer and inverter.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And it's like a corner model.
Yeah,
you know,
yep,
has
yep, yep.
every knob and
Got a
switch on the
ghost
front.
wave, which I still don't understand quite what it does, but it's pretty sweet.
What's it
Looks like-
called?
It's called a ghost wave. It's like a wave behind the waves for
Wave
like
within
Oh.
a wave.
a wave within a wave.
Poltergeist in your machine.
It's a wave enigma wrapped in a taco. I don't know, tortilla. But that machine is super cool.
Right on.
That's like it was the first
Josh Wilton, good with welds, bad with metaphors.
bad with metaphors. But it was the chain that linked the old transformer era to the new inverter era.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a really cool piece of history.
Cool.
Yeah.
So where
Cool,
can we
cool.
find out more information about season 2, Clash of
It's
the
on
Grinders?
YouTube. Just look
Yeah.
up season 2 Clash of the Grinders on YouTube. All the episodes from season 1 are there. That's where you'll be able to find the grind science videos later on this year. But
Will we see a season 3?
I hope so.
I hope so.
There you
I
go.
hope so. I hope I'm involved with it again too.
Yeah,
I've been
so
telling
write
them this
3M.
nonstop. I'm like, yo, do it again.
Yeah,
do
we
it
can-
at my
we can make this
college.
happen.
Everybody needs to go watch Clash of the Grinders, and then we can have it.
And leave a comment.
Yeah.
leave a comment.
Yeah,
That's nice.
Tell us what your favorite part was, or
Oh, yeah.
Engagement is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah,
you want to see more of it.
check
we need more
out the 3M Abrasives YouTube channel. It's where it's all at. Socials, I mean, it's all over Instagram, probably Facebook, I would assume. Weld.com, they usually put something out too,
Right on.
because they did a lot of work with the Clash of the Grinders event as well. So shout out Nate, Bo, Austin, everyone. And yeah, it was a real good event. Everybody else that's putting it out there on the socials, trying to give more awareness
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it. So
Awesome.
yeah.
And where can they find out more about y'all individually? You on a social media thing?
You gotta look.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
All right.
But I appreciate it.
No
But
problem.
this is the guy.
That's the
right
guy.
Here.
Where they
This
get-
guy's
Weld
making moves.
Scientist.
He's making moves.
I don't know. I guess I'm moving, but yeah. At least we're moving in a direction.
That's right. That's what I'm
Making
getting
progress.
at. That's what I'm
There you
getting at.
a little bit every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Kyle.
Honor to
Thank
be
you,
here.
Josh.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Be sure to go where you and thank 3M Clash of the Grinders Season 2. We appreciate their sponsorship of this episode. If you have a comment, complaint, criticism, suggestion, send it to podcast at fmamfg.org. And please tell your friends about this program. Please, I'm serious. I mean, please. All right, that's it. Thank you very much.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Culpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.
It's a wave enigma wrapped in a taco.